Let's start off with one of my favorite poses, and I call this the classic elegance. I love this pose because it usually works for almost any body type. And when you do this right, almost everybody looks great in it. And so I kind of use this as one of my go-to poses, especially if I'm shooting a wedding and I want my subject to look very elegant and classic. This is the #1 pose in the entire world. If you were to look at classic paintings or classic sculptures, they would do this pose, and that's kind of like partly where I got this idea from, is looking at the classics and trying to incorporate that into my work. And for a lot of my career, I only knew this pose. I only knew one pose, and so I kind of learned how to perfect it, and I want to show you my secrets on how to do this, okay? So first of all, what we have to do is, to have a great pose, is you have to kind of shift all your weight onto one leg, right? So if you want your subject to look extremely stiff and static, you just put weight on equal legs, right? And it's very stoic and stiff, right? But as soon as you just look at how elegant she looks, you just totally shifted her weight on one leg and it looks great. So what we're gonna do is pretend like either you're golfing or swinging a bat or you're playing tennis. You can just kind of copy me, right? So let's start with your hands this way. And if you just kind of like pretending you're sweeping, right? You would pull up, perfect. And so I want all that weight on that leg there, right? Perfect. And you just pop that hip out that way, not towards me. There you go. And then this leg here, it's just going to kind of lead in, and it's kind of like you're holding an orange between your knees. So you want to move in that space right there, right? So, and then that foot is kind of perfectly right there. And so you look very, very natural, right? You might want to just drop this shoulder a little bit right there. But it's not, for some people, it's not that easy to hold that, even though you look completely natural, right? And so that's the thing is that when you're posing, you need to learn how to master and teach some of the pose, because for them to actually hold it, even for a minute, can be very difficult, even though it looks very natural. Okay, and so you have to kind of build up it's kind of like yoga. You got to kind of build it up, but look how beautiful she looks. Okay, the only thing is that I need your knees a little bit closer to get, and so the key, did you see that? When she bend that leg just a little bit. This one? Yeah. You lose the impact of the pose. Put it straight again. Bam. That is a key element to the pose, is having all that weight on one leg. And then what you need to do is pop that hip out this way. See that? And so that's very unnatural for a person to do, but on camera, it looks amazing. So what I do is I get them into that. Okay, just relax a little bit. Let's go back, because she's been in that pose for a little bit. See, like she needed to take a deep breath. It's like yoga, literally. But she looked great in it. Okay, so let's move over here just a little bit, right? And let's practice that pose again, where you're kind of doing a sweeping motion, right? Putting all that weight and then popping that hip out that way. Perfect, right? And then you can keep that right there, right? And another key thing is your waist. You got to have space in there. So she can put that hand there, and then these hands need to be at different levels. And so usually I just bring this hand up here, and she can perfect, like that. Like she's holding the hair or her necklace. If the hand is usually doing something, it's going to look natural. Now the key to that is that you don't want to shoot the flat of the hand. You always want to try to shoot the edge of the hand here and have it slightly bent. And she looks absolutely gorgeous. So here, the body is going one way, but I'm going to have her look at the camera this way, or she can even look towards the light here and look back at me with her eyes, right? Beautiful, bam. So I'm going to take a couple shots, because she looks absolutely great right now with this. And turn your head just a little bit more, right? It's really hard to do, actually. There you go. Let me get it locked in. Perfect. And what you may need, okay, just relax again. Okay. What you may need to do is when they're in that pose like this, if they can lean towards the camera a little bit, then it creates a little bit better angle. And so let's try that. So go back into that pose, right? You're swinging, you're shifting your weight, right? You're popping that hip back, right? You're keeping these knees somewhat together, right? You're turning your head towards the light and looking back at the camera, okay? Because what I'm doing is I'm defining this line right here where the edge of the eye is close to this line of her face for a perfect portrait, right? And then she's gonna look back at me with her eyes right there. That looks awesome. And what happens is it's actually a little bit of a strain to do. So you have to keep reminding your subject to keep looking there and look back at me. Yeah, there he goes. Look back at me. Perfect. That looks absolutely gorgeous there. Okay, great. And so another thing is that you have to remember is that you have to keep some space right here because actually put your arm all the way down. So what happens is when there's no space, it makes her waist look bigger because it looks like the waist now goes all the way out past her arm. But when she bends that and creates that space, now I can see some space on her side there. And what you're trying to do with a pose, do you want to relax a little bit?
Sure.
What you want to do when you're posing the female form is that you want a woman to look like a woman. And that's basically what you're doing when you're posing. You're accentuating her shape. And so the more that you can do that, the more elegant and beautiful she's going to look. And so everything that you do with the pose is actually just bringing out that feminine form and making her look like a woman. And that's how beautiful your subject can look when you do this classic pose. Here are the basic elements of the classic elegance pose. The first thing you have to determine is where is your light coming from? Okay? In my particular situation, I know that the light is coming this way. And so what you want to do is to make sure that the body is away from the light at about a 45-degree angle, which she has perfectly, okay? Then you want to get them into the pose by doing a sweeping motion, right? So if she does a sweeping motion, it's going to help her shift her weight, and that's very important. And to realize when a person has shifted her weight, that weight, wherever that leg, that weight is on, it has to be completely straight, okay? Also, those knees should be at a point where they're holding an orange together, okay? Good. Now, I am gonna put the nose towards the light, and now I'm gonna get a short side shadow. What that means is that I'm gonna get a highlight on her face, and I'm gonna get a shadow on the side of the face that's closest to the camera. That's the short side. This is the far side because it's farther away from the camera. So they refer to short side shadow is the cheek that's closest to the camera. So whenever you turn that nose towards the light and they look back at the camera, I'm always going to get a short side shadow that will give dimension to the face. Without a highlight and a shadow, you cannot see the shape of a person's face. And it's a very, very pleasing look with the lighting. And here, just having the catch light with that light is amazing, okay? And so those are the elements of the classic elegant pose that you have to execute for it to look great. In review, some of the most important things that you got to do, first of all, is to shift that weight all onto one leg. That's very, very important. And the way that you know all that weight is shifted is if that leg that has the weight on it is completely straight. If it's not straight, it's not going to look right. If there's even a tiny little bend in that knee, it's not going to have a great look in that pose. So make that leg straight, right? And then shift that weight, okay? That body should be going away from my light is coming in this way. And so I'm having her body at about a 45-degree angle. Your shoulders, face your shoulders towards me. Yeah. And so her foot should be going this way, and then shift your weight again. Right. Perfect. And then the nose goes towards the light. And so now I can get a highlight and shadow on her face, and then the eyes come right back at the camera. And that looks great right there. And you're gonna get a great pose. Turn, yep, look back at me, good. And then what you can do sometimes, if they just lean forward a little bit, it's gonna give them a better angle with their face, and it's gonna look more defined. And then you can do various things, like you can look down this way, like look down that way, right? And then smile, like laugh hysterically, right? And then look at me with your eyes, right? And then I want you to be very reflective and just look down there and close your eyes. Like yeah, there you go. And so you can do different moods too. Good, awesome. And then look back at me. And what's great too, if you can, which is really great with the pose, is sometimes if you can get a little bit higher angle than your subject and shoot a little bit down on your subject, that also has a pleasing effect too. Now, the one thing, you want to relax for a bit? The one thing about this pose, if you get it right, you can shoot it at any way, meaning you can shoot it up tight and you can just shoot the face and it will look amazing. You can shoot it from the waist up, it will look amazing. If you shoot it full length, it will look amazing. But you have to get it. It's like, right? It's like a classic sculpture. Anywhere you zoom in and take a picture of those classic sculptures that you see, it looks amazing. That's the same thing with a pose. When you get it right, you can take a multiple of different angles and cropping, and you can make one pose look like 10 poses by just changing the emotion or changing on where you shoot it. So I'm gonna actually do this again, but I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna shoot really tight, then I'm gonna shoot waist up, and then I'm gonna shoot full length, but it's gonna look like a variety of different poses, but literally I just have her in one pose. Okay, and so as a wedding photographer, I would do this because I needed as much to maximize the efficiency of my shooting. So a lot of times I would just set up this one pose, but vary it. And it would look like I got a bunch of different poses, but I really only had one pose. Okay, so let's try doing that pose again. Perfect. Now turn your head this way a bit. All right, and so let's turn your nose this way and then look right at me, right? And so now I'm just gonna shoot, put your chin down just a little bit, right? Good, and look off that way, right? And so now look at, I've got this awesome shot of her not even looking at the camera, and then laugh hysterically over there. There you go. See, it's totally different, right? And let's put your hands down by your, hips, both on your hips like that.
Both on my
Yeah, and I'm just, because I'm shooting real tight, and then look right at me. And then give me a smile. Perfect. Okay, so now I'm gonna shoot waist up, okay? And so I'm gonna change something a little bit. So why don't you just, maybe put this hand, no, I like it on the hip there, right? And look down this way. Good. And so now I've got kind of a waist up pose where she's looking down. Close your eyes. Right there. And let's put this hand right by your hair. How's that? Yeah, right there. And turn your head this way, right? Good. And so now I'm going to change the angle, but she's doing the same pose, and I want you to look straight in over there. Yeah, that looks great. And now look at me with your eyes. Beautiful. Turn your nose a little bit more towards me, right there. Too much, just right there. You're doing great. I'm gonna take a different angle. Good. Now I want you to look over there and smile big and just laugh. Nice. And look over this way, right? Good. And then look right over my head and then smile and laugh. Good. All right, now I'm gonna do a full length shot. Okay, if you can move over this way a little bit. How you doing? You doing okay? Great. And now I'm gonna have you look over there, right? And put your hands on your hip. Good, right? Actually, look at me. Nice. So when you got that pose right, you can shoot it at any position and it will look good. Can you move your leg, this leg back just a little bit? Yeah, there you go. Perfect. Good. Look over that way. Good. Turn your head all the way that way. Good. And good. Now, how about this? How about if you take that hand in the back and kind of put it, yeah, there, like you're pulling your hair back and you're looking over. Yeah, I like that. Look at me right there. And perfect. I like that. Good. Now look over that way. Now, actually, I kind of like that pose that she just did with her hand like that. And why don't you bring this other hand up here? Can you bring this hand up here? And I'm going to shoot it in tight. And it's going to turn your nose this way a bit more to let that light in this way. And look at me. Great. Just relax your hand. Perfect. That looks good. You're doing awesome. Good. And then let's try both hands by your face.
This way?
Yeah. Do that same pose.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Good. And just one hand a little bit higher than the other. I like how you got good hand control. Let's do this one and this one, drop this one down. So the reason why I'm dropping this hand down is because my light is coming in this way. If her hand is up, it's gonna cover her face with light. So turn your nose a little bit this way and look back at me. That looks great. All right, so that's the classic Elegance pose that is it's suited for almost every subject that you can shoot. They will look good in that pose. Some of the key elements, again, is shifting the weight. Another thing is that you don't want that body square to the camera. You want it at an angle, because what that does is when her body is at a slight angle, I can see her shape better. Okay, so if her shoulders were square to me, the shape doesn't come out as well. But when it's slightly at an angle, now I can see the shape, and it's really making a woman look like a woman, right? And so that's very important, is to have that slightly at an angle and also be aware of where your light is. Okay, that's very important. And I know my light is coming in this way, so I'm gonna have this nose either from here to the camera or over this way. Okay, now that's, that might be something that's a little bit different for your subject to do, because they normally just don't do that. And so they might cheat on you, and you have to be mindful of your subject and really help them with the pose and constantly remind them to keep the weight shifted, to keep the nose towards the light. And it's these small little details that really make the pose. And so the more you practice, the better you will get at it. But it takes hours and hours. I would even say thousands of hours of practicing even just this one pose to master it. So don't be discouraged in the beginning, but continue to keep doing it, and you will have great success with this pose.